Problems with schools. Hello, my friends. My teaching experiences convinced me that something is wrong with English education in our country. Everywhere I went, it was the same situation. The students were bored, they were frustrated, they were stressed, and they were nervous. Most students, even after years of studying English, they fail to speak the language fluently. And I know that in this process you are not alone, because it's kind of, a global problem. Most of the students felt that learning English was boring and stressful, and speaking English is, even worse. In fact, the thought of speaking to a native speaker immediately made them feel extremely nervous and shy. I remember I had a lot of students, but one of them was named Leila. She felt she had developed a psychological problem with English, and she had named it English trauma. So the trauma is a deep wound or injury. How sad, I thought to myself that, so many people now think of English as a kind of injury or a mental disease. And throughout my teaching experience and teaching career, I have met many students who had similar feelings about English, unfortunately. And I discovered that Leila was not alone. Rather, English trauma is a global epidemic. Though most people feel that they must learn to speak English, but very few seem to enjoy it. Most who learn the language, they struggle with the same feelings of nervousness and frustration. As I encountered this problem more and more, I began to look for the root causes, because I realized that before I found a solution, I needed to understand the problem itself. Just as a doctor, must first diagnose a disease before treating it, right? Think about it, what is the cause of all of this misery and failure? Why do so many people fail to speak English effortlessly despite years of study? What's wrong with English education here? The first and the most obvious problem I found with schools was the way in which they teach English. Like most schools everywhere in the country, they use grammar translation method. As the name implies, the focus of this method is on grammar analysis, is the memorization of translated vocabulary. This method breaks English into kind of an endless series of grammar formulas to memorize. And of course, each grammar formula has exceptions, and this must be memorized too. Guys, schools and private language centers, they like the grammar translation method because it appears to be serious. It appears to be academic and complex. Grammar translation method fits the way schools teach most subjects, with textbooks, lectures, notes, memorizations, and tests. And the only problem, as you know, is that it doesn't work. In real conversation, there is simply no time to think about grammar formulas and their exceptions. And the failure rate for this method, therefore, is absolutely horrible. Yes. Despite the failure of most students to speak English fluently, schools continue to use this method. And I could say that, this is an epic failure of our education system. Now, recently, because students find the grammar translation method so boring that, some schools have added the communication activities to their curriculum. So what is this like? It's occasionally the teacher puts the students into pairs or groups, and the students then read or they repeat dialogues from a textbook. Sometimes they might answer a few questions from the worksheet. And of course, these activities are quite unnatural. There's nothing like a real English conversation. So, consequently, the failure rate of these communication activities is just as bad as grammar translation. And obviously, the English teaching methods used in schools, in private language centers, they don't work. That was easy to see. That's easy to see. And I know it. Students know it. And many teachers know it too, though few will admit it. However, as I continued to investigate the problem with schools and language centers, I found even deeper problems in the education system. And these problems are less obvious, but in many ways far more damaging to the students. And I call these problems the hidden curriculum, because they are the hidden lessons taught by schools. Okay, let's analyze this and discuss more about this hidden curriculum. You know, see, like most schools, again, like language centers everywhere in the world, we can say, they share a similar hidden curriculum. And one element of this curriculum is student passivity. So look at the schools. Students are trained to be passive, not active. They just sit in the chairs, in rows, you know. When they are young, they are told to be quiet and obey the teacher. As the teacher lectures, the students take notes. And later, they are told to memorize the notes in the preparation for a test. And the message is clear. Learning is a passive activity. Yeah, you listen to the teacher, you take notes, you're memorizing notes. The problem is that the speaking English is not a passive activity. You must connect with other people. You must constantly ask and answer questions. You must communicate ideas, exchange these ideas, emotions and descriptions. You must be ready for unexpectedness. You must be spontaneous. You must be actively interact. English is not something that you passively study, guys. It's something you do. Related to the problem of this passivity is the issue of energy. Because sitting for a long time is a low energy activity. You know, the longer you sit, the more energy you drop. And as your energy drops, so does your concentration. So what's worse? We know that some learners need physical movement in order to learn effectively. And these people are called kinesthetic learners. And the truth is, we are all kind of kinesthetic learners to some degree, because we all benefit from physical movement. But what happens in these language centers, in schools? Schools stick us in chairs that drain our energy. And eventually, inactive body leads to inactive mind. And plus, you can see there, this is the concept that I call one right answer mentality. And this is one of the, I can say, the greatest flaws of the school education. One right answer. And one right answer is a powerful part of the hidden curriculum. It's the result of using textbooks and tests. You know, in these schools, you are frequently taught that there is one and only one correct answer to question or problem. For example, you may be asked to choose the correct verb tense on a test, right? Or you may be told proper English greetings. The hidden message is that the teacher's way is always right. And as a result, these students, have been trained to believe that there is only one correct way to say things in English. But the truth is, there are always many ways to say the same thing. We can change verb tenses in order to change, the feelings of the story. We can use different vocabulary and different phrases. And you know what? We even break grammar rules all the time. So look at the native speakers. One right answer thinking limits and confuses English learners. That's why effective communication requires flexibility, while the one right answer mentality trains students to be rigid and unimaginative. So next is connected to the problem is another dangerous part of the hidden curriculum is the fear of mistakes. This is one of the most negative and traumatizing messages taught in schools, How is the fear of mistakes taught, guys? Listen very carefully. How? The answer is through tests and corrections. In nearly every school all over the world, teachers regularly give quizzes, tests, exercises. The teacher asks questions and the students must provide the one right answer. And of course, the one right answer is always the teacher's answer. My question is, what happens if the students provide a different answer? You know what's the answer? They are punished with a lower score. I think the students are smart and they quickly understand that in these language centers, mistakes are bad, or in school, mistakes are bad, and mistakes must be avoided. They also understand that truth is unimportant, and the best way to succeed is simply give the answer that the teacher wants. And you know what even worse? Is when a student's already feeling nervous, tries to speak English with the whole class listening. They are just learning, so of course they will make some mistakes. This is quite natural. But when the teacher corrects these mistakes, the student is embarrassed and it becomes even more nervous. And eventually, most students try to avoid speaking English because the situation is so painful. Because by punishing and correcting mistakes, schools punish risk-taking. Little by little, they train students to avoid risk and avoid doing anything that they cannot do perfectly. Yet there is no perfection with English speaking. I said it, even native speakers make mistakes. Look at them. They make grammar mistakes. They can mispronounce words. They can forget vocabulary words. But it doesn't matter because they are focused on communicating, not on tests, not on grades. Of course, this fear of mistakes goes far beyond the English class. After years of school, years of this private language lessons, most people learn to avoid risk in most parts of their life because these English lessons train them to be passive, rigid, timid, and obedient. And this not only hurts their English speaking, also, harms their career and limits their success in all areas of life. Fortune favors the bold. Those who are active, flexible, and passionate, they are the one who achieve the greatest success in life. And those are passive, obedient, and rarely live their dreams. You will make many mistakes as you improve your English speaking, my friend. There's no need to be upset by this. The truth is that most native speakers, they don't care about it. They don't care if you make grammar mistakes. They just want to communicate with you. They want to share thoughts, ideas, and feelings. They want to communicate with you as a human being, not as an English student. And to communicate effectively, you must forget the idea of perfection and learn to be flexible. See you next time. Bye.
Self-study paketi barədə ətraflı məlumat əldə etmək üçün bizə müraciət edin.